All right, what is going on, guys? UFC 317 has gone and passed, and this is going to be the fights to make after the event. Starting off with the main event winner, Topuria, knocks out Charles Oliveira in the first round in brutal fashion. And to be honest, guys, the main and co-main event, the matchmaking was easy. They did it for us. The match for Topuria is Paddy Pimblett. It looks like that's what they're probably going to do. It looks like that's what Ilya wants, although Dana White was unhappy in the post-fight press conference. He said that, if it was up to him, they wouldn't have brought Paddy Pimblett in the cage. They did show on the big screen, they showed Paddy Pimblett, they showed Arman Tsarukyan, and they showed Justin Gaethje. I think, Paddy and Ilya kind of have this beef that goes back a few years, so they're probably going to go with that fight, and then not to mention they faced off in the cage after the fight. And I think, Justin Gaethje saying he's going to retire if he doesn't get a title shot. I think he needs to fight Arman Tsarukyan. I think him and Arman need to fight for a number one contender fight. Winner of that fight is next in line after Paddy Pimblett. And to be honest, Paddy Pimblett doesn't even deserve a title shot. He's coming off a win of Michael Chandler. His only wins in the UFC is Dan Hooker, which is a decent win, and the dead body of Tony Ferguson. Those are his only 2 wins in the UFC. So yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. Oh well. Charles Oliveira. It's kind of tough for me to put a matchup for him because I think he needs to take at least 6 months off. I don't want to see Oliveira back in here until like January, February. I mean, I know that's a little bit more than that's about 6 months-ish. I really think he needs to take some time off after that KO loss. And I was kind of going back and forth on who I wanted him to fight. I've got one potential option here with potentially another one. So, I got Max Holloway. It would be their second fight. They fought before it. The first one ended in controversy where I think Oliveira broke something. But only if Max Holloway beats Dustin Poirier. If he doesn't beat Dustin Poirier, then we're going to have to come up with somebody else for him to fight. And I think I'm thinking Gamrot if Max Holloway loses to Dustin Poirier, which right now, early prediction, I'm picking Dustin Poirier to win. But if for some reason Max Holloway does win in that fight next month, I think, December, January, February, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway 2, that would be a great fight. If they want to, if Max Holloway wins and they want to put the BMF title on the line, this would be a good fight for it. It could headline a pay-per-view. If not, if Holloway loses to Dustin Poirier in his retirement fight, go ahead and throw Gamrot in there. I think Gamrot fought Ludwig Klein. Was it Ludwig Klein recently? I think that's who he fought recently. I don't think he has a fight booked, but for a big matchup like this, I think Gamrot would probably wait out till the end of the year. Again, moving on. Alexandre Pantoja absolutely dominates Kai France, shuts him out, shutout performance, and they already made the fight for us, and that's with Joshua Van. Dana White said before the fight that the winner of Royval versus Van would be fighting for the title next, and Van came out on top. He's going to get a title shot next. Cannot wait for this fight. Super excited for it. Early prediction for that fight, I'm going Pantoja. But very excited. Van could win. Pantoja goes forward, marches forward, throws caution to the wind, and just goes out there and swings. And Van has good power. He could clip Pantoja. Pantoja's getting old. He broke the curse. Or I guess Volkanovski did. But at least at flyweight, he broke the curse. He's 35 years old. I don't think anybody in the flyweight division over the age of 35 has ever won, or 35 or older has ever won the title. And Volkanovski and Pantoja have now done that. But nonetheless, this would be a great fight. And there's really nobody else for Pantoja to fight at flyweight. So if he gets through Joshua Van, I honestly have no, he even said he's tired of doing rematches and fighting people multiple times. There's really nobody left. I can't think of anybody up and coming. Joshua Van was the up and coming prospect. You had Charles Johnson, who was kind of ranked on the top. I think it was 15 or 14, who has a win over Joshua Van, but he's since lost, and I don't think he's in the rankings anymore. So we need to get some more contenders. Tatsuro Taira got turned down by Brandon Royval. So yeah, should be a fun, exciting matchup. Moving on, Kai France loses to Alexandre Pantoja in the co-main event, And speaking of Tetsuya Taira, that's who I think, if Tetsuya Taira wins his next fight, I think you do Tetsuya Taira versus Kai Kara-France, which I believe is his fight's in August. So Kai Kara-France isn't that active of a fighter. He usually fights once, maybe twice a year. So, maybe in December, January, you could do Kai Kara-France versus Tetsuya Taira, put it on a pay-per-view, main card, put it on like a fight night main card, would be a great addition to any of those. I think this would be a great flyweight matchup. And if Tetsuya Taira loses, I mean, you could do the rematch between him and Albazi. There's not a whole lot, like that top of that flyweight division is a little bit dead because Pantoja is kind of just keep fighting each other because Pantoja keeps beating him. So I think that'd be a good fight to make, though. I did want to include Brandon Royval in this video. Brandon Royval lost to Joshua Van in the featured fight, and I think you just need to rebook the Manel Kape fight. With as many fights as Manel Kape has pulled out of recently, I don't think he deserves like a super step up. Royval is going to probably go down a spot or two. I think Kape's on a 2-fight win streak right now, so he does, borderline deserve to fight up in the rankings, even though he's pulled out of the fights multiple times. But yeah, I think you just rebook this fight, honestly. I think that's probably the best thing to do in this situation. Moving on, Beneil Dariush. Little tricky to come up with a matchup for Beneil Dariush because, again, like Kai Kara-France, he doesn't fight that much. Like, it's been 2 years since he's been back in the octagon. Since he was in the octagon. I know he had the previous fight with Moicano in January that got delayed because Moicano had to fight Islam on short notice. But he took a little bit of damage in this fight, and the person I matched him up with, I'm not 100% sure if he's ready to come back yet. So that'll be another one, like, you could target this like towards the end of the year, maybe fall time, depending on if Dariush wants to get back in there. Dan Hooker. I think this is a great matchup. Although I would love to have seen Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. I doubt Justin Gaethje is going to want to take that fight. And, I doubt he's going to take the Arman Tsarukyan fight. But I would rather see Arman Tsarukyan versus Justin Gaethje. Although it would be a great fight. I think this is a really good fight. Dariush get himself back up in the rankings. I think Hooker's ranked like 6 or something like that. So a little bit step up in the rankings wise for Beneil Dariush. And for Dan Hooker, if he can get a win over Beneil Dariush, and he's one fight away from a title shot at that point, maybe even not with how they're giving title shots away nowadays. If he goes out there and beats Beneil Dariush, he might just get a title shot. Especially in the meantime, if Ilia Topuria, because he took 0 damage. There's no reason this fight with him and Paddy Pimblett shouldn't be like in 5 months, 4 months, something like that. Oh, I really hope they don't keep Ilia Topuria out super long. But Ilia could beat Paddy in the meantime, and then you could have Arman and Justin Gaethje fight, and then they probably won't be exactly ready for Ilia when he's done, the winner of that fight. So in the meantime, you could have Beneil Dariush, Dan Hooker fight, and then the winner of that fight potentially could fight for the belt. Moving down, Peyton Talbot gets his victory. I got the pick wrong. I want to see him tested against another grappler, semi-grappler at least. He's got pretty good grappling. He's on a win streak himself. Winner of this fight gets an opportunity to fight somebody in the top 15. This opponent has previously been ranked before. He's got heavy power in his hands, and that is Ricky Simone. I think this would be a great matchup for both guys. For Ricky Simone, he could go out there, look to out-grapple Peyton Talbot, and he's got good power. So, and then for Peyton Talbot, he's got a really good advantage, I think, on the feet as far as his striking. Their power is probably pretty... I think Simone might have a slight power advantage. But Peyton Talbot's more of a sniper, where Ricky Simone goes out there and throws heavy shots, puts people down that way. But I think this would be a great matchup in the bantamweight division. You could throw this on a pay-per-view. If Ricky Simone was ranked like he used to be, you could have made this a fight night main event. But nonetheless, I think this would be a great matchup. And again, like I said before, winner of this fight gets a top 15 opponent in their next fight, especially if it's Ricky Simone. I think at this point, he'll have been on a 2 or 3 fight win streak coming out of the rankings, and then that'll earn him his shot to try and get back in the bantamweight rankings. Moving on, RoboCop. gets his brutal first round KO over Jack Hermanson. I don't want to go ahead and throw him back in there with a top 15 opponent. I think he needs to get at least one more win. Excuse me. And same goes for the opponent I gave him. Up and coming contender. Undefeated. A little bit of hype behind him. Nothing super crazy. Let's see if I can say his name right. Mansour Abdul Malik. I believe he's 9-0 or 10-0 undefeated prospect in the middleweight division, coming off of the win of Cody Brundage with a kind of somewhat controversial ending to that fight. I think for Gregory Rodriguez, he needs at least one more win to get, he just lost to Jared Kenner 2 fights ago. So he gets a great win here, and Jack Hermanson gets one more win with a hot up-and-coming prospect, if I could talk. And then give him another chance with somebody in like the lower half of the top 15 of the middleweight division. I think there are some people in the middleweight division he could potentially beat, but apparently not Jared Cannonier. Moving on, Terrence McKinney gets a very dominant submission win over Vyacheslav Borslov. I think that's how you say his name. And I'm trying to find a matchup for McKinney. I think, every time Terrence McKinney gets a slight step up in competition, he loses. He's done it every time. So I think we need to put him up against Borslov was not a bum by any stretch of the imagination. He's kind of like the in between of a decent opponent and scraping the bottom of the barrel of the lightweight division. And this next opponent, I think, is a little bit closer to a pretty good, well-rounded, decent fighter, and that is Jordan Levitt. Jordan Levitt, in his last fight, I think it was against Kurt Holobar. I think that's who it was. I can't remember exactly. I remember I didn't watch that card altogether. But yeah, I think this would be a great matchup in the lightweight division. They both have really good jiu-jitsu and grappling. I think McKinney definitely has the power advantage on the feet. So I could really see him going out there, knocking out the Monkey King. I'm assuming that's still his name. Jordan Levitt. But I think this would be a great matchup. Not much else to say about it. Moving on, last but certainly least, Tracy Cortez gets the win over, I forgot the lady's name. I already forgot her name. It doesn't matter. She's probably needs to retire. But I didn't really know who to match her up with, honestly. So I'm just going to throw her in there with Erin Blanchfield. Because, it seems like a flyweight right now. We're either going to have Zhang Weili move up to flyweight to face Valentina Shevchenko, or I want to say her name is Natalie Silva, something like that, who just beat Grasso, is probably going to be next in line for a title. And then you got Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's also in there. So you could put her in there with Jasudavicius, which I want to say she has a win over her, but I'm not 100% sure. And I'm pretty sure Blanchfield and Cortez had a little bit of beef going on. I could be wrong about that, but I thought I saw something online where they were getting in, talking trash a little bit. So this would be, a bad blood matchup, potentially, if I'm correct in that statement. If not, I think Blanchfield's only on a 1-fight win streak, maybe a 2-fight win streak. So she definitely needs more wins if she wants to fight for that title. So, both the girls need to get a win if they want to fight for the belt next. So yeah, these are going to be the fights to make after UFC 317. If you guys have any different matchups, let me know down below. Make sure to subscribe, drop a like on the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.